Which weekday do people bike the most? This will be our fourth pandas use case. In this video, we are going to take a look at asking a business question. Which weekday do people bike the most? And answering the question using pandas. And EDA. Let's head over to our notebook. As usual, we do our imports. We'll be going back to our bike path dataset here. I was curious about whether we are more of a commuter city or a biking for fun city. Do people bike more on weekends or on weekdays? So the first thing that we will do is add a weekday column to our data frame. And before doing that, we of course load up our data. And this time we give a lot more options in the read_CSV function, because that's what it takes to load up the data properly. And then we do a quick plot on the berry 1 column. Next up, we are just going to look at the berry bike path. Berry is a street in Montreal with a very important bike path. So we're going to create a data frame with just the berry bike path in it. And of course, for doing that, we use our typical filtering techniques coupled with a .copy function so that we have a copy of the data frame and we do not modify the original data frame in some way. Let's look at a few rows of our filtered data frame. Now, looking at these values, we see that we need a weekday column. So firstly, we can get the weekday from the index. We haven't talked about indices yet, but the index is what's on the left of the above data frame under date. It's basically all days of the year. So if we do a .index on the berry bikes dataset, this is what we look at. So you can actually see that some of the days are missing. Only 310 days of the year are actually there. Who knows why? Pandas has a bunch of really great time series functionalities. So if we wanted to get the day of the month for each row, we could do it like this. So all we have to do is do a berry_bikes.index.day, and it plucks out the corresponding day values from our dates and displays it to us. But we actually want the weekday, right? So all we have to do is .index.weekday. Notice that it has 7 values ranging from 0 to 6. 0 is a Monday, and I found that out by actually checking it on a calendar. Now that we know how to get the weekday, we can add it as a column in our data frame like this. So this is the first time we are actually constructing a new column in our data frame, and we do that using the .loc function, which stands for location. So we add a new column called weekday, and we want the values to be the weekday values of the index of the data frame. So if we execute this now, we see that we have another column called weekday with all the values for the day of the week present. Adding up the cyclists by weekday. Data frames have a .groupby function, which is more of a generic implementation to the value_counts function that we have been seeing, and you can easily relate it with the typical SQL group by if you're familiar with that. I'm not going to explain more about it right now, but if you want to know more, I'll just point you to the Pandas documentation, which is really good. It'll be a hyperlink in this notebook that you'll receive. In this case, berry_bikes.groupbyweekday.aggregate_sum will be the function that we are going to use, and let's break it down. This is what it means in English language, the code that we have written right now. Group the rows by weekday and then add up all the values with the same weekday. So we do a .groupby over the weekday column and then sum it up So where value underscore counts function was giving us the counts, this is giving us the sum. The way to do it will be to use group by and then aggregate it by sum. Now it's hard to remember what these 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mean. So we're going to fix that by coming up with an enumeration strategy, an enum strategy, by using day of week names instead of day of week indices. So all we have to do is set the index of the weekday counts data frame as a list of the day of weeks. And then if we again look at the data frame, we'll know that the data frame has been modified to reflect the changes. And of course, we move on to doing our typical bar plot to grab our insights. So it looks like Montrealers are commuter cyclists. They bike much more during the week.